keep up, and that's a good transition point. It's hard to keep up with all of the latest news for this upcoming movie, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we always like to try to get some recordings in when we can, and you had brought up the idea of just talking about this movie or video game or something, and I'm like, let's shoot for the movie. There's been some updates, but not since like you initially pitched it, and I was like, all right, let's wait for some more news. Maybe there'll be some more news. I don't think we've gotten any more news really this week.
There's gonna be news that comes out the second we finish this podcast.
Yeah, that's the problem. That is the problem. So keep your eye on the feeds just to make sure. But that is the problem with doing episodes like this. But I'm in this zone right now where for so long we kind of were in a drought and we didn't really have a lot to talk about news-wise. So, but I really dig doing like the bonus episodes and the news update episodes and like getting stuff out to everybody as quick as I can. And by that point, obviously, a lot of people already know all the details and all the stuff. So it's not like it's like breaking news or getting stuff hot off the presses. But like I do like doing those bonus episodes.
Yeah.
So it is fun. But this is going to be kind of more of like a history plus like just a refresh of what's going on and where we're at. And obviously it's not like this very long, set of events, but we are going to take it back a few years actually. And I was quite shocked because while this whole process has been going on with all the updates for Jurassic World 4, Jurassic Park 7, whatever you want to call it, I've continually referenced back to this article from Collider, and they had a discussion with Frank Marshall a while back about, is Jurassic World Dominion kind of going to be like the end point? Here's the article here from Collider. And basically at some point in this article, they're just like, is this going to be the end point? And Frank Marshall's like, no, it's going to be the start of a new era. And I feel like everybody remembers this article. This was literally way earlier than I remembered. It was May 22nd, 2020. So at this point, we're, in the midst of a pandemic in 2020. And, it's only a few months into that. And Jurassic World Dominion is kind of been on a break and then maybe starting to film again. It's going through its stuff over there. That was a whole ordeal.
Trying
to get that movie running. They weren't they filming for like a few weeks and then it stopped and then a bunch of weeks went by. Then they started filming again and they were touting how awesome their production is because of all the COVID protocols and everything. But during all of that, in the midst of it, Frank Marshall has this interview and basically saying like, no, this is not going to be the end. We're not done yet. It's the start of a new era. And he mentioned that, dinosaurs are on the mainland now amongst us and they will be for quite some time. And he added that he hopes. So I'm like, okay, that's not very confident, but like, but this is going to be like the new normal, he basically says. And I thought like, a funny point at the end of this article, they mentioned something like, so far Universal Pictures hasn't delayed the film's planned June 11th, 2021 release date. And I was laughing about that when I was kind of reviewing this article because I wanted to go through
made and that release date and then some.
Yeah. Well, no, it continued on a full year after that. So but I thought that was pretty funny. But I wanted to go back. We've got Larry David playing in the bottom corner here of this video if you're watching on YouTube. But I wanted to go back and just kind of find like where things may have started for the future of this franchise because at that point when Jurassic World Dominion is coming out, we're all questioning like what's going to be the next step. Is anything going to happen? And Frank Marshall's confident at this point in 2020 that the franchise is going to expand. It's going to be a new era, and the language of new era really was spoken into existence at this point in 2020. So I thought that was interesting because it's kind of circled back around to that now. Back then, did you have any expectation as far as where the franchise would go?
I think it was clear that it was unlikely to finish with Dominion because obviously they'd invested in Camp Cretaceous that you had for the first time this television product as well. And I think back then, weren't there even rumors of the live action TV series still as well? So
There might have
that
been, yeah.
combined, yeah, that combined with this kind of just gave the sense of, okay, there isn't gonna be an end point. I think if anything, I actually genuinely think I was a little bit annoyed by this because it kind of felt like it was letting the cat out of the bag before we got to see Dominion, because you kind of already were like, okay, well, Dominion's not gonna end things per se, so how much of an ending will it really feel like? But it definitely wasn't a surprise because at the end of the day, it's people always say Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and then obviously Dominion made $1 billion at the box office. So of course they're going to want to continue to do them.
Yeah, yeah. So, up until this point, I don't think we had a trailer. The trailer debuted, I believe it was 2/10 of 2022. So quite a while later. There's probably some
Yeah,
developments in between all this stuff, but important developments. We kind of continue on to the trailer, and the trailer is very very much like experience, which I wrote down, experience the epic conclusion of the Jurassic era. So that
yeah,
was it. Like that, to everybody like watching those trailers, to general audiences, that is the end. Like experience the
yeah,
epic conclusion of the Jurassic era. It felt like during that time period there was a confusing like bit of messaging, right? We've got
yeah.
Frank saying which is 2 years earlier, which is just mind-blowing. All this time, since COVID and everything just has blended together. We're now literally 4 years almost from that article from Frank
Oh my
Marshall,
god.
which is like mind-blowing to me. Like I don't know how
Yeah,
we've gotten here, but so a lot of things have changed and they're still mixed with their messaging. This is going to be the end, but it's not the end. It's a new era. So it's like very confusing, I think, at that point.
yeah.
You were never really phased by the epic conclusion, right? You didn't really consider it to be the end.
I mean, it's like I say, it's quite obvious it wouldn't be, but I think it's annoying that they went down the route of using that marketing trope,
Hmm.
because I think it has caused confusion for a lot of general audiences. So I have seen some discussion around Jurassic Park 7 now, and sort of the general public going, "Oh, but wasn't the last film the last one? Why is there another one?" and that kind of thing. So I really don't think they help themselves by sort of leaving that open goal for misconception in the eyes of the general public and people who aren't as invested in the franchise.
Yeah, I had a conversation on my Wednesday night live streams. Shout out to those people in the live chat every week. But so they'll all remember this conversation. But I wanted to talk about like kind of the messaging of
Mm,
the franchise. Like what is the franchise telling us? And I feel like they really need to hone in on what they're talking about when they put out press releases or when some new news becomes available, or even if it's just in reference to a certain film or whatever. Like I feel like their messaging is very loose and confusing at times. Like,
mm,
I brought up the whole like Spinosaurus on Main Street tweet. Like there was a tweet
yeah,
about that. There was there even before Jurassic World, there was some, confusion as far as like whether the Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 mattered, and or if they were being skipped over, if it was retconning that they were even created. So I feel like there's got to be better like brand messaging here as far as like what matters and what counts and what is this era, when do we start, like, so it's very confusing, I think, for even hardcore fans to really
yeah.
figure out what is going on. Like what are we doing here, what is the messaging behind this franchise. So I hope they
I
hone
mean,
that
I think,
in.
and I know we'll talk about this later, but I think the whole announcement kind of summarizes that, doesn't it? Because I mean, we'll get into it, but to announce a film without the director attached is quite a ballsy thing to do. And
Mhm.
it almost puts them on the back foot if they then have to say, oh, actually, hold up, we need to delay because.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so that's yeah, and also like with the most recent like updates, there's there's been a lot of like reboot talk and like, is it a
Mm.
reboot or is it a sequel, a continuation, and all that. So there is very much confusing messaging going on here. But this brings us to we're still in like the 22 range before Jurassic World Dominion has released. I think this was around 2022. I don't know if it was like tail end of 21 or not, but like in this range at least, there's rumors I feel like starting to swirl of DeWanda Wise and Mamadou Ache like
Mm.
continuing on after Jurassic World Dominion. So I mean, I had heard rumors that they would be like a couple and they would continue on with this franchise. They would be the new leads to take the mantle and all that stuff. So
I
I had
heard
heard that,
rumors at the
yeah.
time that Jurassic World 4 was already in development with um, Kayla as the lead.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that that was very much a lot of the discussion point at the time was, oh, is this production going to go back to back with Jurassic World 4? Are they going to go straight
Yeah.
into it with this new character leading it, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, and I think honestly, like I think that they really built a pretty awesome character in Kayla
Yeah.
Watts. So to me, having Kayla be somebody along with Ramsey, Ramsey was like a little less so. Like they didn't really build his character out too much. They didn't really get a ton of grasp as far as like who he was or what his motivations will be in the future.
Yeah.
But to have them together, I thought that would be a great idea. I would love to have seen that kind of continuation. But that once you see the movie, you're like, okay, that it doesn't totally track that idea, like because they didn't. I don't know. Did they have any contact in this movie at all? I forget. Like they may have just when the
So
helicopter arrived. Like I forget.
yeah, they did then, and also we know that Kayla had delivered to Biosim before, so it's
Yeah.
kind of implied that there might be more of a background story there. But also I would imagine, so we know that Ramsey was involved in the trials in Washington afterwards, and the like Senate hearing. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kayla was involved in that as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely could have been. And I, for so long had been talking about that kind of rumor and my expectations in my brain was that's where we're gonna go after this movie.
Mm,
I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna continue on with these characters. We'll still have that a little bit of like legacy baggage where like, it's some of the same characters continuing on but I think with Ramsey and Kayla, they could have really at least carried that mantle and done new stories that don't necessarily have to tie back into stories that we, have seen before. So I thought that
oh
would that
yeah.
would be a good jumping off point for a new era. So for me, like things are checking out, like all the conversations kind of lining up, like the new era and have these new leads kind of continuing on. I thought that would be, a great direction. So um
Yeah.
yeah, and that's back in 2022. Obviously, even like prior to that, there's these apparent like script notes that leaked out that this was I think back in 2021 or so, but like saying that basically the entire script of Dominion was not good or something like that and felt very harsh for what I was reading through, but so it maybe there was this lingering idea back then if those script notes are true and real and everything maybe there's this lingering idea with Universal that maybe we need to go in a different direction. I don't know, um, but the messaging is interesting at this point. So,
Mm.
but Jurassic World Dominion comes out June 10th, 2022, and I think it did. Okay, it did pretty well. It didn't do as much as the other ones, but it did $1 billion, which is a lot. In
It's a
this era,
sizable amount of money, yeah.
it's
Well,
a lot.
especially being one of the first films to come out post-pandemic as well, when cinemas were still kind of just reopening.
Yeah, I mean, you've only had like a handful. You've had Spider-Man: No Way Home. This is off the top of my head. I don't know. Jurassic World Dominion. You've had Barbie. I think
Mm,
Oppenheimer may have been close to 1 billion, if not 1 billion. I don't remember.
I think so.
Um,
What about
but there's been a
Maverick?
handful. Yeah, that one I think did too. So there's been like only a handful of movies to really, really like hit that $1 billion mark, and everybody talks about Jurassic World Dominion as a disappointment box office wise, and I'm just like that doesn't check out for me.
It
I
doesn't
know
stack up, no.
it just crossed the $1 billion threshold. It took a long time to get there, but they did it, and this franchise is averaging at a $1 billion per film.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say,
it's
if it
doing
was
well.
1 million
1
per film,
million.
they probably wouldn't do another one.
we wouldn't have got past number one if that was the case. But like, it's doing really well, and the box office is maybe speaking a different language than the critical audience. The critical audience really doesn't like this movie. I personally just still love it. I mean, I'm still, especially right now, I feel like the conversation died for a little while, but right now the conversation's building back up in terms of Dominion and whether it was good, whether it was bad, whatever the case may be. And I've been very heartened by the amount of people that really love Dominion. So I've seen a lot of people actually coming out of the woodwork and saying that they really like the movie. But at the same time, the people who didn't like it are still continuing to say that they didn't like it. So it's I'm hearing it from both ends right now.
Sunday. Yeah, I rewatched it on Sunday and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I over the past few days I've been thinking oh, maybe I need to throw it back in, because I've been watching some clips and different things. And I'm like, oh man, I love this scene. And I just watched, we were talking about the trailer, and I wanted to get the wording, experience the epic conclusion of the Jurassic era. And I was watching that trailer ooh, man, I'm getting goosebumps. This was such a good time.
Yeah.
I love this time personally. I had such a good time with that film, and just seeing those scenes, man, that was a good trailer. So, yeah, but for me, I think it did well, but is there something lingering as far as the studio reaction to the movie? Are they hearing bad conversations about it? Are those script notes still lingering in their brains? What's going on? I don't know, but the word is at this point still that we're gonna get this spinoff with Kayla and Ramsey, but at the same time, the messaging is it's the end. So it's very confusing. And the same thing has happened with Star Wars. Their messaging was basically the same, experience the conclusion of a saga or something like that. And of course we now know that that saga is not dead by any means. A new Rey movie is coming out. So it's the Skywalker saga is not done because she's a Skywalker, right?
But she's no, you miss it, Brad. In the new film, she's gonna say, "I choose to be Rey Solo."
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just gonna change. Eventually she'll be I'm gonna be Rey Fett.
Rey Malgus.
No, but yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously, there was a quote at some point from Colin Trevorrow that a lot of the brand messaging, stuff that you see in these trailers is developed by the people who make the trailers and stuff, or whoever else, some marketing team. So even Colin, I think, didn't even realize that was going to be the case. So
I do think it's really interesting seeing in terms of the marketing, and this different to the future of the franchise, but it does appear to me that towards the end of the franchise there was a bit of a divide between Colin and the studio. It just felt obviously we're getting the extended edition at a later point. It kind of felt like that was the film that he always wanted to put out. And for whatever reason, that wasn't the film that was put out the first time. So I'm curious as to whether there was some kind of change in the dynamic there, and if that experience will affect how Universal approach it in the future as well.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't put that in the notes, but that's a good shout, because at that time, once Jurassic World Dominion comes out, things felt weird, right? Things felt odd. You're getting, there was a lot of conversation pieces about Bryce and her pay scale versus Chris Pratt, and and then there was stuff with Colin, and it just felt weird, and it felt kind of tense, and I didn't like it. I didn't like that feeling. So yeah, I think at that point, there probably is some weirdness going back and forth between Colin and Universal and all that stuff. And honestly, since that time, we've gotten next to nothing from Colin. It's almost been kind of radio silence after that marketing time kind of elapsed, and that was it. And speaking of that end date of the promotional period, there was a video set out in Malta. They did that whole Malta thing. Colin was even out there, and it was just a weird thing.
Yeah,
Like
they did the whole
it,
promotion with zero fan involvement whatsoever, just a couple
it
of select media outlets.
it was like it was a promotional piece for Malta. Like that's really what it was. But it felt odd and it felt weird. But at that time, Bryce is out there. She's doing a lot of media work with DeWanda Wise, and there's this whole video where I don't know why I've got this this picture still up because we're well past this new era. But there's this period of time where they film a behind the scenes little clip after their interviews are done. And, Bryce mentions that she wrapped up 8 years of Jurassic promotion, mentioning that she's come full circle. And, that I remember that being an emotional video and seeing like 8 years come to a close. That was kind of sad. She was definitely choked up in that video. But at the same time, she did say to DeWanda Wise, who plays Kayla Watts,
I want you to quote word for word.
No, I'm not going to quote word for word. She says, "You take that baton and and you sprint like hell, babe. You're going to kill it." All right. So Bryce at this period of time, this was, what was the date on that? It was September 14th, 2022. I'm sorry I wrote these dates this way, Tom. I know you're looking at them the wrong way.
I'm like, what is the 14th month? What's going on?
14 months. But
oh my god, later there's 24 months.
But at that time in September, Bryce is basically endorsing DeWanda Wise and kind of not even endorsing, but like just saying like, congratulations, like this is yours
this is
now.
What's
like
gonna happen, yeah.
She's handing a baton. If you don't know that, it's a racing metaphor. You're handing it off to the next racer, and the next racer is going to take it and run with it. So I don't know why she would say that if there wasn't the idea that she was going to be continuing in this franchise, right? So
but also, it's interesting.
Why would you say that?
Bryce saying that she wrapped up 8 years of Jurassic promotion. The director's involved in the promotion as well, right? So there's been a lot of talk about whether Bryce would come back in a directorial fashion, but that almost seems to me like that's her saying goodbye to the franchise.
Yeah. I mean, as far as we know, that offer maybe hasn't been made. I'm sitting here wondering, why is that offer not being made? And hasn't been made? Has Universal said, have they even seen The Mandalorian, like, or any of the Star Wars stuff that Bryce has done? Like, are they paying attention? Because she does some really great directing.
Well,
we
might have got our answer, Brad, with the whole pay scale thing. Maybe Universal great with that when it comes to female directors as well. And then if that's the case, Bryce probably wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I don't have the full history of them working with female directors, but yeah, I mean, maybe there was some bad blood there. Maybe something like we were saying, and maybe she just wants to be out of that situation. But I was confident at this period of time watching that video of her handing the baton to DeWanda Wise and saying that she's going to kill it. Like there was specific, wording there to say like, "Here you go. This is yours. You're going to kill it." That doesn't. That doesn't mean like for acting or. That doesn't mean like for acting or like for doing other jobs. To me, that speaks directly to this franchise. Like, you take it and you run. You're gonna do great. And I was, fairly confident back at that period of time in 2022 in September that like that's what we're gonna get announced. And in typical fashion, like. A few months after the film, we're gonna get a media piece, a press release dropped that, hey, we're continuing the Jurassic in a new era with Kayla Watts starring in her own film, being the main character of the film, but
starring in her own film. What is that dinosaur?
What was that joke? It was my question.
I was quite proud of it, to be honest.
So jokes
So,
aside,
so yes, dear listener, Brad was confident at this moment in time that we were on the cusp, the precipice of a brand new Jurassic era, and then, just like in the dark, doomy days of post Jurassic Park 3, silence.
here, if you want to know what that period of time was like, let's just take a moment of silence. Ready? That's pretty much what it sounded like. Except actually there was a lot more of me talking about just random stuff. So I was trying to keep the conversation going, guys. So there's a big period of time where, like, you know, the 30th anniversary stuff's going on. So they're not really talking about anything, but you know, I'm gonna skip ahead to 2024 where myself and Jay Jurassic, you know, we sit down for like the first episode of the year, and we're talking about 2024 and the, you know, things that are going to be talked about and discussed. I don't think once talked about the potential of a new film being announced. I don't think at all. I don't think that was even on our radar to be talking
So,
about
dear listener, the
potential.
Jurassic Park podcast is always first with all of the scoops you need.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about that at all. Like, so when the news comes, that was a complete surprise. Of course, before that, you know, we got official word of Chaos Theory continuing on, and Jurassic Park Survival. So like we're still kind of, you know, in the Jurassic World era, but then also kind of going back to the Jurassic Park era. So we're kind of flip-flopping, which I think is a great way to handle this franchise, to be honest, is to be able to do both. You know, you don't have to just choose one. So I think that's hopefully a good way forward, is to have both brands available, you know, for whenever they want to use which logo. It's like, hey, here's the red and yellow logo, here's the blue and gray or whatever colors you want to use. Take them, you know, like, so
I think it's cool that. So before we come on to the new film, I think it's really interesting that both Chaos Theory and Survival, we don't know if Survival is going to be canonical yet, but we can assume that Chaos Theory will be. There is the potential for them to do stuff that sets up whatever comes next as well, which is quite interesting, because we've never really had that before with Jurassic. It's always been film to film to film, because everything else would usually get decanonized. Whereas this time around, or soft canonized, whereas this time around, there is an opportunity for them to actually potentially tell some story in that then impacts whatever comes next, which will be interesting. I don't think they will necessarily do that, because I think that puts an entry barrier on any new viewers, but there's that scope there, which is quite interesting to think about.
I don't know. I feel like, just a tangent here, but I feel like, you know, a character like Darius, you could just like drop into a new movie and have him be working with dinosaurs in some way, and you get it. Like, you get it. He loves dinosaurs. What else? There's nothing else to get. Like, you know the character. That's it. Like, it's great that there's a ton of backstory you could check out, but I think a character like that you could drop in and just be like, you know, hey, he's a kid who grew up loving dinosaurs. You get one line in there that mentions that, you know, and I think you move forward from there. And stuff like that could work, I think, in the film, you know, canon of Jurassic. But hey, let's even go back, you know, to crossing over. You know, even for Jurassic World Dominion, it was that time period where we're getting seasons like 4 and 5 of Camp Cretaceous. 5 came after Dominion, right? So that did come after Dominion.
If you're about to talk about the cryo can again, I'm walking off of this show.
I'm going to talk about the cryo can, so I'll talk to you later. So that was one of those, you know, things where like they had the opportunity, that show, they had the opportunity to cross over the other way, because they did a bunch of really good crossing over into Camp Cretaceous, you know, from the films. Obviously, the entire first season is like a crossover into the, you know, that series, and then obviously with Fallen Kingdom and the intro and stuff like that, and then skipping ahead with like the chips, the embedded in the dinosaurs, the brains, and there's a slight crossover there. It's like not really fully realized, but And then, of course, the cryo can, which was just uncovered via a couple fingertips. So what I'm saying
Can
is
we take a moment of silence again?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a moment of silence out
A
for the
moment of
cryo can.
silence for the cryo can.
Well, there was an email coming in right at that moment, so that was that's a great moment of silence. But I don't know. I think let's just say if there's a way for them to retcon that entire thing, let it happen. Don't hold
Yeah.
back. Like I want those shows to be, as canon as possible, but in my older age, I've cared way less about canon than usual. So if there's a way to
It's a
get rid of that,
traumatized Dodgson remembering the mission is easier than it really was.
yeah, maybe that never happened. Maybe like what we saw in Camp Cretaceous was him just being like, I didn't pay an entire team of people to go salvage it. I never. What is this can? And he just like picks it up. He's just, and it's just like in his imagination. And from the outskirts, you got like Kenji over there, like looking at him as he's holding his hand up with an empty, nothing in it, but he looks like he's holding a can. I was like, what's that guy doing? But I think if there's any way for them to retcon that, and this is one like idea I've been saying since this popped up, this news, with David Koepp, which we're jumping kind of into now. It's like we jumped all the way to 2024, where in January 22nd, they're like, hey, David Koepp is going to be writing a new movie, a new Jurassic World movie, in quotes or whatever. So I kind of, in my brain, just threw that aside. I saw David Koepp, and my mind instantly goes to kind of the good old days, and I've loved all of these movies, but in my mind, I'm going back to the 90s, and I've got writer Jurassic Park, Lost World, guy getting eaten in Lost World. I've got David Koepp in my brain, like writing a story for me personally that I've always wanted to see. That
he's a big fan of the podcast, Brad.
Hey man, if you're listening, David, let's get a moment of silence for David listening to this podcast, because I feel bad for you. Right? Ready? Okay. But
no email that time.
No email that time. So that was not David. Nope, he did not email. But I had said it on one of those live reactions or something like that. That like, how cool would it be to get? Well, actually, prior to even that, I had already made posts about wanting a Kayla Watts movie crossing over with Darius and getting that, like you had mentioned, like, would it work? I think it would work. I wanted to see that movie too. But at the same time, I'm like, if I don't get that, I also want to see them just do a direct sequel to Jurassic Park, recovering that cryo can. I think that would be just the best option. And think about how cool that would be if they said, hey, let's do a direct sequel to Jurassic Park. We've got the writer of this first movie. Like, that would just break like the whole world. I feel like everybody would be like,
yeah.
what is just happening? We're
Jurassic
going back, you know?
Park shaving cream.
Shaving cream is the name. Yeah, that's exactly. And then like the shaving cream shows up and people are like, what's the backstory on this shaving cream? And they're like, oh, you didn't see Jurassic Park?
The title is Jurassic Park. You didn't say the magic word.
Ooh, I like that. That's good. Let's do it. But yeah, so that in my mind, I'm like, let's have David Koepp do that. So they at least announced that David Koepp, is going to be writing the new movie. This came from the Hollywood Reporter on the 22nd of January, and we got a Suits ad. Suits is coming back as well.
Stephen Amell,
yeah. I think he's going to be a new suit guy, a suitsman.
Hopefully a green suit.
But basically, they mentioned that this project has been flying under the radar, which was very true. Like, nobody really had any idea that this news was going to be coming. And
I
the
think
scripts in a
everyone was taken back by it. It was quite interesting seeing
yeah.
people who usually have a little bit of inside scoop going, actually, I had no idea that this was coming.
Yeah, I mean, like we've been leading up to this moment. We all had the idea that something could be in the works and they were probably working on something, but to have it just kind of dropped on you that there has been work going on and they are
Mm.
far enough along that they're whispering about this 2025 release date. They mentioned that there's no director on board and Frank Marshall, Pat Crowley, Steven Spielberg, and no mention of Colin Trevorrow at all. Like I was
Mhm.
like, oof, that's kind of rough because I thought for sure if you had asked me, which I probably have said it many times, for the future movies, Colin Trevorrow would probably be an executive producer on the movie. But that does not seem to be the case, at least right now. There's no mention at all of Colin Trevorrow. So, was there some bad blood? Does he just want to move on with his life? Like, what's the deal here? I have no idea. But
I think he wants his time with Jurassic to go extinct.
maybe. I mean, look, like he came out of like the indie film world and just making like a small
Mm.
film or whatever, however many it was like not much, but to go into a world where you are the creator, you're essentially the person. You are
No,
the
Brad,
Steven
that's a different
Spielberg,
film.
yeah, I know that. What's Gareth Edwards? You're the Gareth Edwards of the world, or the George Lucas. You're that person for the franchise, the one who consults on Live Tour and Chaos Theory, and well, I don't know, maybe he does, maybe not Chaos Theory, but
Mm.
Camp Cretaceous, like all these things, to then go to no mention of anything. That's kind of wild to me. That's pretty wild.
Mm. It does seem quite brutal.
But at the same time, this article from Hollywood Reporter mentioned launching a new Jurassic era. So we're back 4 years later to that branding of mentioning, this new Jurassic era. So to me, when you
I
say,
um
God,
I was gonna say here, I really hope they don't rebrand. I think having Jurassic Park and Jurassic World is enough. I think if we now get Jurassic Epoch or whatever, it's gonna just be too much.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I've been on the train of like wanting, um, just like a Jurassic brand overall.
Mm.
That just speaks volumes. I think, as we'll talk about in a little bit with the logo release or kind of logo, but like I think the Jurassic brand speaks for itself, and you don't necessarily need to continue on with a Jurassic World, Jurassic Park mentality. I think you can just kind of
Mm.
just be like, this is a Jurassic movie, and do the whole Han Solo, a Star Wars story kind of thing.
Yeah. A
But
Jurassic story.
I
A
think it could
tale
work.
from a Jurassic world.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm.
Um,
It's
but
almost as if there was some logic in that name choice.
it seems like there could have been. The person who came up with that wasn't just mindless and just like had no thoughts going on in his head. Uh, but but I agree it would be kind of bad news to just go, okay, now we've got another Jurassic titled film franchise, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, and
Jurassic family.
Jurassic era. Like that would just be weird to
Mhm.
me. Like I would be okay if it was like Jurassic World new era or Jurassic Park new era or
Mate,
something
it
like
would
that.
be so dumb if it was Jurassic era. Like they literally said in the last film, the end of the Jurassic era, and then film 7 is Jurassic era.
That would be really dumb. That would be really dumb. But basically, there's a lot of conversation about uh implying that there's going to be just a new cast, a new
Mm.
storyline, and yeah, and it said I think at some point in this article that like where was it exactly? It must be up here somewhere. Like continuation plans may have changed. I don't know where it said it. I don't know. But yeah, no, I think like the titling of a new Jurassic era means we're not going back and revisiting things. We're not going back. So like in
Yeah.
my mind, I'm like, okay, Cryocan story off the table probably also, because if it's a new era, we're not kind of going back to the era that everybody kind of really wants to see with Jurassic Park. Because of the vibes, everything about Jurassic Park era, whether you're going to do a prequel to that movie or a direct sequel to that movie or a movie set in between Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, or Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World. Like, I feel like that era is gone now as of that mentioning of a new Jurassic era. And also the fact that this article had mentioned like that, there's the mention that it's going to be Jurassic World and not Jurassic Park is kind of telling. So I was like, okay, I don't know.
Well, I think that's the thing is, where we end with Dominion, it is very much a Jurassic World.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense, right? Like the titling makes a ton of sense, sure. But so in my mind, I'm like, okay, maybe this Kayla Watts story is still relevant. Maybe we are going to kind of like continue on with that direction. But who knows? Nothing's been confirmed yet there. And the next piece of news that really came out after the David Koepp thing, which was huge, was the Steve Versati saying, "Hey,
yes,
it's happening." Like I'm the reports are true. I'm on this movie, and it's in the works.
I'd love to know. I really want to know whether he was allowed to do this, or if Universal were kind of like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, probably not allowed to do it, but like that, it's the post is not down. They didn't tell him to take it down. And like we're talking about now in this kind of era, that things are going to be a little loose. We're not really going to, confirm or deny a lot of things, but some things we're going to let slide.
We're going to confirm one big thing, Brad.
One big thing, yeah. But the thing that kind of bothered me about this article too, I think it was this one, was that like they talk about this new era and stuff like that, but it like a lot of people, maybe it wasn't this article specifically, but at some point there was like conversation of like, oh, is this going to be like a reboot? Are we just moving on from everything we just did? And so I feel like that's where I'm saying like the messaging kind of has to like get out ahead of the problem before people start thinking that the last 3 movies don't count or something. So
I think Jurassic traditionally has a huge problem with reactive comms rather than proactive comms, where you'll get like your trailers, but that tends to be it in terms of official communication. Actually having more of a sense of a pipeline early on would probably mitigate any concern.
Yeah, it would be nice if they stayed ahead of things, but nope, they love to just let us stew and talk and wander out of control. But Steve Versati at least coming back, which is cool. I think Steve did a great job. I really like everything I saw dinosaur wise. I know it's like, again, it's not a perfect recreation of some dinosaurs and where they were in that initial opening scene, or but I think that the way they looked and the feathering and all the different kind of really cool creatures we got, they looked awesome. Like I really loved everything about the way that those all looked. So I'm happy with the work that he did, and he mentioned like, is still in the footsteps of Jack Horner. So, but yeah, so that's like a pretty confident piece of news there. That might be the most confident piece of news we have.
Apart from the official announcement we received, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, writers, and David Koepp's been attached to a lot of movies and has been not the end writer on the movie or not the final writer, or, somebody who's just done a little bit of work here and there. So like writers, I'm not even confident with, and dates I'm not really confident in. So, and directors I'm apparently not very confident in, but Steve Versati, you're good, man. This is the most confident piece of news we got.
Brad, you can be confident in directors because at this point in time, we're very confident that David Leitch is coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, David Leitch, he's going to be doing it. He's circling that movie. He's circling whatever this Jurassic World movie is going to be. and they, they mention in this article it's going to be coming out July 2nd, 2025. Um, so yeah, and again, a
Wait,
lot
did
of
they
talk.
did they say that before Universal?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. Wow.
I don't know for sure if that date was included in this article initially, because there was a follow-up article
Yeah.
from Deadline about just the date. So I don't know if they figured out the date. I'm not really sure the full timeline, but I saw it at least in this article first, um, and then on social media. But
Yeah.
but yeah, there's a lot of talk again about the original people. Nobody's coming back, Bryce or Chris or Sam Neill or anybody, Laura Dern, and that is going to be produced by David Leitch and his wife's development company or production company, 87 North. So at this point, it's like, wow, okay, we're pretty far along in these talks that like we know that they're going to be producing this movie and they're going to be directing it. Like, so, you know, and as far as this article mentions and the trailers have shown, like the Fall Guy, his upcoming film looked pretty amazing. Like it looks really great.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see that one. So, but that was the news, which came with a lot of, conversation. I think I ultimately liked the news. I think it was like an interesting direction. I think this article may have mentioned like the biggest director next to Steven Spielberg. And I was like, really though? Like, is he?
Yeah.
Are we sure Joe Johnston maybe wasn't the biggest one? Or
J.J. Abrams?
hey, we could get J.J. Abrams. I mean, there was a lot of talk of him being attached to this movie too. But there's also been a lot of talk that like J.J. can't really commit right now for some reason. I don't really know. He's like having a hard time committing to scripts and stuff. But like, he did it for Star Wars, and whether you like those movies or not, he really, and same thing with Colin Trevorrow. They restarted a franchise and made them financially viable and made them big hits. So having him back would be awesome. But I think like probably a guy like JJ, after you do a movie series that's not your own, it's not your own film, it's not something you can like hinge your career on, you probably don't want to go back to another one, like, and say, okay, now I got to go back to another movie series that's not my own, that's not something I can really put my stamp on. So I could see why he would probably say no to that.
Yeah.
But like apparently he was in the mix. That's the rumors at least. So but David Leitch came on board. It seems like officially, I know they say like circling around, but it really seemed like he was like going to be doing this. I mean, he
Ready
had talks.
to sign, yeah.
Yeah, he had talks at Amblin, I believe, and like he was ready to go.
And then what happens next, Brad?
Well, what happened next actually was this date here that was announced on social media, Jurassic World account. No words, no title, nothing in the comment section from them or the description or whatever. But July 2nd, 2025, confidence at its best right here. We've got this, circle logo with the T-Rex head, all white text and visuals. But like, you see that date, you're like, oh, okay, like things are moving along. And I know for me,
I agree with the choice of the word confidence.
You don't think so?
I feel like there's potentially some other words that could be used.
Oh, wow. I'm not sure I want to know, but like to me, like if they post this, they were confident that that's on the books for July 2nd, 2025. Like I'm not confident in that. That's not me.
No,
I'm not. I'm talking about Universal.
Okay, yeah. Fair play.
No, Universal's confident in that date.
I mean, the other words I was thinking of were naive, ignorant.
Now, look, I know. I think did he come out with the episode? I'm gonna spoil his thing if he didn't. But Stephen Ray Morris did a whole like deep dive into like the production schedules and stuff. I think he might have. Yeah, he did. doing the whole deep dive into like the turnaround times and things like that. And this turnaround time kind of lines up with a lot of the other ones. We're kind of used to Jurassic World Dominion at this point, which took just like way too long to come to
17
to produce.
years, yeah.
If you do look at the films that are coming out in July of 2025, you do have Superman Legacy, which is 1 week after this movie, July 2nd. 1 week after that, which is not good. Like, film industry, please stop doing this. Stop putting movie after movie after movie on top of each other, because July 2nd, you're not going to make enough money that you want to make with Superman Legacy 1 week later. It's not going to work.
I actually think Universal have been smart with this, though, because they're targeting the Independence Day weekend.
Yeah. And that's why I've seen people like Jeff Snyder say they want a Will Smith attached to this movie, which would be completely like wild. I can't see it personally, but Will Smith has in many, many moons ago been, the July 4th weekend person. So, but yes, you get a few extra days in there for that weekend. But like, I just think that the movie industry has changed and people are less willing to go constantly.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's too expensive to spend, a bunch of money on this movie and then Superman. And then, well, let's talk about Superman for a second. Superman has a director, has a full cast, has been written, via social media from James Gunn that there's been so much work done on this movie. And they announced sometime, I think last year, with a whole slate of stuff, which I can't imagine is going to actually happen also. But they announced that so long ago, and it's been in production for a while, and there's concrete evidence of the production, and they're gonna start, I think, anytime, and if they haven't already. But
I
that
think
movie
they already have. Yeah,
that movie feels well ahead of this movie, which comes a week earlier.
yeah.
So
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of talk about supposedly quite a small scale team that's been working on this for some time, which I guess could be baked into the Kayla and Ramsey rumors. Like maybe they've had stuff in development on and off since then. But I think the question mark is how long has that been in development? And what is in development? Because we've heard that the creatures are apparently already done, which is great, but if you don't have your actors, then there's nothing really that you can do until you get them.
Yeah, and that's perfectly all well and good. It's just like I love the James Gunn way of just saying like, hey, this is what we're doing, and like I'll answer any questions you have, and he's been super great about answering so many questions. And then to have like kind of like this J.J. Abrams inspired production, whatever Jurassic's doing right now, where it's like complete secrecy, and we're not going to tell you about it until we have at least one piece of concrete information. Because
to be fair, I was half expecting us to get notification that the film was coming out 10 days before.
In typical Universal fashion, yeah. But like to me, it just like at least seems like Jurassic is far behind everything. And then we also have Fantastic Four, which was finally announced like officially. Just the other on Valentine's Day. We knew that the movie would be coming. We've heard about it for a while, but the casting announcement was finally revealed, and that cast kind of leaked out a while ago. We've pretty much known about that Fantastic Four cast for a while, but that one also dated. I don't have the date, but it's the end of the month of July, like the 20-something. So they dated that for the end of that month, and we have a director, we have a cast, and we know that there's been a lot of work done on the Marvel side of things. So again, there's two productions in that month that we know a lot about. Now, I have been hearing rumors that they could potentially move that movie into like November or something like that. So keep your eyes on that. That Fantastic Four could move, but still, that's at the tail end of the month, so that really wouldn't probably hinder this movie too much. It's that Superman right there in the middle of it that kind of throws things out of line there. But it's interesting. It feels very rushed to me, especially when But at this point, when we get this logo, we've got a writer, we've got a director, we've got a date. Okay, we're doing good. We're doing good. And
And how?
words. Yeah, well, words of like a smaller production and things like that,
Mm,
maybe are coming out. So it like kind of feels like, okay, maybe they can do like a small movie, get this thing like, isolated feeling and not a ton of CG or not a ton of animatronics or whatever. Just like kind of hone it down, not a huge cast, just like small amount of people. Maybe you could
mm.
make that thing really quick and not have to do a ton of post-production work to get that, going.
Well, yeah, like
But
Battle at Big Rock.
yeah, exactly. So after that, there was a little bit of information from Jeff Snyder, though, who I guess has his own like newsletter or podcast or something. I don't know. I did not subscribe, but
Mm.
there was like this whole thing that came out about like, David Leitch was the director for hire and not somebody that's going to like really get his stamp on things. He's just kind of there to do what Universal wants him to do. Um,
Mm.
and the film's going to be that smaller in scale and feature a new cast. So when you hear that, like, oh, David Leitch, first off, I didn't even get your opinion on that. What was your opinion on that casting, or
What,
not
as in
casting, but
David
the
Leitch? Yeah.
director? Sorry.
I mean, it was an interesting choice. Obviously, he's done Hobbs and Shaw. As Derek Davis posted, he was the second unit AD
Yeah,
on Jurassic World Dominion. No, not Jurassic World. So it's
yeah, he did
useful
the
to.
New Orleans stuff down
Yeah,
there,
and that
which
stuff
was the
feels
main
quite
street.
good. I like a lot of
Yeah,
that stuff, so I wasn't necessarily that concerned. I think for me it was more just the whole narrative around David. I wasn't concerned about him. I was concerned about the pace it was happening. That we
yeah,
seemed to suddenly have this new film, and then oh my god, we've got a director already, or do
yeah.
we?
Or do we? But yeah, there was some other information in that Jeff Snyder thing about spin-offs and different things. We'll skip over that
Mm.
for now. Um, but yeah, a director for hire, at least somebody who's just gonna get done what they need to do. That's why this seems very rushed and quick, and it's like you're not gonna be able to do what you really want to do. So just make the movie we want. We've got it all figured
I
out. You
think
just need to
yeah.
film it. You just like why?
And
I mean,
it's like
but Tom, you should get the camera. You've got a camera. You would could be a director for hire for them. Like they would, you'd do what they want anytime. I'm sure, right?
mate, yeah. I'd just be
I
like,
would
hey,
too.
I've got a script for a television series. Let's go and
No, no,
film
no.
it.
Don't bring them a script, man. If you learned anything from Jeff Snyder's story, do not bring them a script. Okay, so do not bring
That's
them a
one
script.
way to soil the relationship early on. Yeah,
Yeah. So don't
yeah.
do that. But
I've
if you
done
got a
that with
camera,
enough
man,
relationships.
if you got a camera, bring it over because they need somebody to film this movie and do what they want,
I
done.
So I think at this point alarm bells started ringing for me because it sounded very much like it was an executive driven film. And I think we've all heard mixed things about Universal executives having input in creative decision making in previous Jurassic films. So at this point I was kind of like, okay, what exactly are we in for?
Well, we're in for a loss of a director. Let's take a moment of silence
Yeah.
here for David Leitch.
Who isn't dead but is
Oh no,
just
it's
no
a moment
longer
of silence.
working on
No,
the
he's not
next
dead. No,
Jurassic one.
that was our moment of silence. You interrupted to say he's not dead. No, he's not dead. Okay, hold on. Okay, yeah, he's not dead. So that was a quick moment of silence. Hopefully, people don't have that feature on their podcast apps where it just skips the silence.
Let's take a
But
quick moment of silence. So that was the moment of silence.
but Deadline reports that David Leitch no longer directing this movie as the talks have fallen through. So that was a very quick turnaround because that first piece of news with David coming on board was February 5th. And then by February 9th, a few days later, he's already gone. And every piece of
Clearly,
content
he
that
said,
we all
"Oh, by
made.
the way, I've got a script."
Yeah. That's probably what it was. He had too much vision. But all the content that all of us made is pointless. Unless you just want to hear conversations about, different things that we talked about, you know, I think that's valid too, because I made several podcasts and videos and things about like what this news is and what it means and how excited I was, and talked about theories and ideas. So that stuff's still valid, but the news of him being attached just lasted a few days. So,
Mm.
apparently, it was an amicable parting, so that's good. Like, he's done work for them before, and he does a lot of work with Universal, and they want to keep him around, obviously, because he did Fall Guys, which is coming out, in a little bit. So he's gonna have to do a lot of promo for that. So maybe in a few weeks' time, I think it comes out in May. Maybe we'll hear some more about what his side of the story is, because I guarantee somebody is going to ask him, right? I hope so.
Yeah. I hope
but
somebody asked him for a scene-by-scene breakdown of the script he was asked to be a shooter
yeah,
with.
yeah. Maybe he can give some notes about how it looked. But like, if he wanted to put his stamp on things, if he had a different vision for this movie, that seems to have been like the reason that this fell through. Because, like, if you come onto a Jurassic movie, I'm sure you want to have a little bit of input, but you don't want to be somebody. I don't know. It's got to be not a great feeling to know that you're just coming in to do what other people want you to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you become a director to direct, not to be directed.
Yeah. So there wasn't really much in the way of information in this.
So at this point, my alarm bells are intensifying slightly. Okay.
Yeah. just a little bit. And
then we get hot.
We do get hot. Yeah, there was like a heat vision report. I don't have the image for that, but a heat vision from the Hollywood Reporter had indicated that, like, he wanted to be somebody, I guess, that could have really put a stamp on the film. And there was this source apparently that said that there's not enough time to work with new ideas.
Yes.
Which
this
probably
is where my red flags go ding ding ding.
Yeah, which probably, speaks to why he's not involved in this, because like he probably had a lot of ideas. I imagine if, we've got tons of ideas. If the Universal said, hey Brad, hey Tom, you guys, do you want to direct this movie? We'd be like, yeah, we got so many ideas. Okay, no, we'll see you later. Actually, we don't want you involved. We've got plenty of ideas. So
Brad, I hate to break it to you, but in terms of receiving that call, we're probably like 37th on the list at least.
I mean, I'm glad that we're at least 37th on the list. That's not far down.
Mate, I mean, let's be real, we're probably not even on the list.
I've got one less credit than Colin Trevorrow had. So that's, before he was added to the franchise. But yeah, so he, or somebody says that there's at least not enough time to work with new ideas. So that, to me, that's like you're saying, the alarm bells are going off. There's not enough time. This movie's got to come out. We've already told everybody, which is not a firm set in stone thing. Film dates change constantly.
PR 101 is usually do not share something until it is confirmed.
Yeah, like that's, oh man, it's just wild to me because none of this stuff is official news. Like, this is just scoops. These are scoops. This is not a press release. This is I'm sorry. The one about David Koepp was like official news, but like all this other stuff has been like scoops and things. It's not really like announcements or press releases. So I don't really know why Universal decided we have to tell you about this date. Maybe they got word that Fantastic Four was going to be announced soon, and we got to get ahead of that or something. But
gotta keep the brand relevant, Brad, right?
I did do a whole deep dive on one of my streams recently. Go check out the weekly live streams on YouTube. Shout out to all the people in the chat. But I did
two
deep
shout
dive.
outs on this show, guys.
They're there every week. But I did a deep dive into like what is Universal's like what movies do they have coming up, and there's quite a bit, but there's not like official, like you don't know that there's going to be a lot of like we're going to break down the doors with the box office. There's Wicked, which is definitely going to make a lot of money. Wicked's going to do great, like I have no doubt about that. But for some reason they're still marketing that as Wicked. Not
for a minute, and I was so
Wicket,
confused. I was like, "What? We're getting an Ewok spin-off?"
an Ewok movie. Yeah, it's gonna be.
My
No,
brain is genuinely
Wicked.
just gone.
It's
Yes, I know the film where Jeff
story of
Goldblum's
the Wizard
playing
of
Ian
Oz.
Malcolm. Yeah.
Yes, come on down to my city of green.
Dude,
I can't wait to see him do that.
I got that advert as a paid ad. Was the first time I saw the trailer, and it made me sit up in my chair because the way he enunciates as the wizard is literally the exact same as Ian Malcolm. So I
Yeah,
sat
there-
up and I was like, "What?"
Jeff Goldblum doesn't act. You know that, right?
No.
He just is. He just is. That's all he is he puts on different costumes and just is himself. So yeah, but I can't wait to just hear him sing I'm wonderful. Yes. So it's gonna be fun. But that movie's gonna do great stuff for sure in the box office. We also have this is all off the top of my head. I don't remember every detail, but there's a Megan 2, which will do okay. There's a few okay movies that are okay, they'll make some money. But you do have How to Train Your Dragon in live action, so that'll do probably a pretty
That
big
would do
deal.
well.
And depending on how Wicked, the first part is received, the second part comes out in 2025, at the later half of the year. So who knows if that will make a ton of money. So I think they're just we need a movie in the middle of summer here that's going to make us money. So we need to keep this movie here. We can't move this away from that. So that's my feeling is they just have to have this movie come out because of the strikes and because of COVID and everything that's, messed up the box offices in recent years. So yeah, I think it's pretty firm that they want this date there. So they're going to rush to get it done, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
Even if it means the film is a dumpster fire upon release.
Yeah. So, there's not enough time. And then this is where we get the report that they've done some dinosaur design work and some soft prep on the movie. There was also this line about they're going to lean into action, which is obvious. If you're going to hire David Leitch in this role, you're going to get some great action. John Wick stuff, Bullet Train. I watched that the other day in prep to find out more about him.
I really hope we're going to have Owen Grady returning, doing some John Wick stuff.
I mean, he already was. I loved that stuff that he did in Fallen Kingdom.
Dude!
It was Jason Bourne-esque,
That's the film! That's the film! Somebody kills Owens Blue and he comes back and goes after them.
Yeah, I know, right? I've heard that. I've heard Maisie, Beta's killed and Maisie's gonna, take down some people. So there's been a lot of conversation about that kind of style of stuff. My thought was based off this next one where they said it's gonna lean into action and it's gonna have an Escape from New York vibe, which I've actually. What'd you say?
I've never seen it.
Which I was just also going to say the same thing. I've never seen
this
it, but
Snake Plissken, isn't it? I've seen.
Yeah, I may have seen it. Yeah. I may have seen it a long time ago, but the plot point here that I wrote down was that it's crime-ridden U.S. New York City is a walled-off prison, I guess, and Air Force One apparently crashes into the city, and the president's on board, and Snake has to. Is that his name? Snake? He has to go in, and he's an ex-soldier, and he's going to go retrieve the president, which
I might
that's a great
watch this
concept.
On Amazon Prime tonight, yeah.
Yeah. I was considering watching it too, yeah, but I didn't have enough time before this.
So here's a piece of speculation for you. I wonder if the reference to Escape from New York is because a plane with a dinosaur or dinosaurs on crashes somewhere.
That's perfectly plausible. Yeah. In my mind, I'm okay, you hired David Leitch, who just did Bullet Train. Did you see Bullet Train?
I've seen bits of it. I love Lemon and Tangerine.
Oh, they're so good. I actually really liked that movie a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this Escape from New York, maybe it's a train that has dinosaurs on it. I think me and Aaron, I think we're talking about this. I don't know if it was on the podcast or we did a live stream last week with no, it wasn't last week, but that was Valentine's Day. The week before that.
Oh, you guys did a Valentine's Day
Yeah,
live
we did it.
stream.
No, we didn't. It was the week before that, and we talked about some things. And I don't remember if he told me on the feed or off the feed, but like he mentioned something about like having this love of like train movies. Sorry, Aaron, if I'm
Yeah.
bursting your bubble here, but like, and I'm like, yeah, train movies are pretty awesome. You got like this one, you've got like James Bond, and there's a lot of really cool movies. The Mission Impossible one, a lot of cool movies set on trains that have like cool train
Yeah.
action sequences. So in my mind, I'm like, have a train that is carrying dinosaurs from one facility to the next, and then it crashes in the middle of nowhere, and it's like an isolated movie where like this one person has to try to take out or like trank all these dinosaurs or escape this wilderness. And, I thought that would have been a really cool idea for a movie. And it kind of maybe could have that Escape from New York
I
vibe.
would dig
But
that. Yeah.
yeah, but apparently like an insider at Universal said that the Escape from New York vibe is not true. So I don't know if there's like mixed communication there, if it is, or they just didn't know what they were talking about, or what is the
Well,
case.
you mean
But
communication is still a problem?
could be. Also, the insider said no to weaponized dinosaurs, so that's apparently off the table. Which that would be a continuation of the Jurassic World stuff, pretty heavily, because that was like a main plot point of those movies. So,
I still
yeah,
think it makes a lot of sense. Like I was about to spoil something in Tales Season 2, but I don't think I want to. But I think it just makes a lot of sense for these things to pop up in more real world scenarios where they might be used nefariously.
yeah. No, I agree totally. I think that would be, a good way to do it. All we've really gotten out of that is like small scenes. We got a little bit of like, obviously the training is part of that. Owen training, but we got a quick conversation in the beginning of Jurassic World, and we got like the Indoraptor. Is that what it was called? Yeah. That scene, and with the targeting system, and that was about it. Like we really didn't get a whole lot with that story. So to actually see like Vic Hoskins' thing come to fruition in some way, I still do think it would be
with a cybernetic arm.
Yes, please. Let's go. Give him an eye patch. It'll be an Escape from New York vibe, I think. But yeah, so that's at least as of this moment in time. As far as I know, I have not checked the internet today, but that could be where we stand right now. I did want to bring up just a little
trailer.
Oh, we got a trailer for the new movie? Oh, okay. Let's watch it right now. Here we go. It's let's hit play on the trailer. Ready? Here it is. Sorry, that's not it. But there was not. This is not news or anything. But I just wanted to talk about this real quick because Steven Spielberg was at the like Oscars luncheon thing for the 2024 Oscars, and there's tons of people there. They do this like massive picture thing, and Steven Spielberg took a few pictures with like J.A. Bayona, who has that movie that's on Netflix right now, with Michael Giacchino doing the score for that movie. So I'm like, maybe is Steven out there recruiting? Is he on a recruiting mission currently? Like, hey, J.A., would you want to come back and just do something real quick for us? Get it off, I don't need any vision, but like
you can't have any input in it.
No input, but like, would you do it?
J.A. strikes me as the kind of director who likes to have input.
I think so. I do think so. Now this next one that I don't really know a ton about the director himself, but I could see maybe this guy being like, let's do it. Let's go. I don't like, and that's the director of Godzilla -1, Takashi Yamazaki. Dude, that movie, what are you doing, man? We did a whole 10 episodes about Godzilla. What are you doing, man? Go watch that movie somehow.
Different Godzilla.
Yeah. But No, it's the multiverse of Godzillas. They all exist on this.
Oh, I can't wait for the epic conclusion of the MonsterVerse saga to feature Zilla from the 19 whatever film,
Just the
1994,
dude in a
wasn't it?
suit.
Or 1998, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know, I
want.
wasn't alive.
What was that? What's the baby one's called? Like a Manila or something like that. Like I want that
Yeah.
Godzilla, that like baby Godzilla. God's the son of Godzilla. It's horrifying. But anyway, Steven Spielberg took a picture with him as well, and he actually gave Steven like a mini like Godzilla toy.
Mm.
Like, and so Steven now has this. So I'm like, okay, that could be a great recruiting mission, because if you've watched Godzilla -1, a lot of that movie
Yes.
like has a Jurassic vibe, dude. Like it is
It really
straight up
does.
feels Jurassic. So I think that could be a great choice. If I know you saw it, so you really know all about it. But I think that could be a really cool choice, is to get him to
Yeah.
go from Godzilla to, and that movie has got a lot of hype and praise, and people are loving it. It made a lot of money. I think it's like one of the biggest Japanese movies or something in the US here. So that could be a really cool transition, and I'm sure like an amazing goal for that director. Probably, and I'm putting words in his mouth, but I would assume if you're imitating Steven Spielberg in your film, you probably want to like work with him in some form or fashion, not just give him a Godzilla toy. But
No, that was
yeah.
his dream. It's achieved now.
I've
He's
always
been
wanted
dreaming
to
of
just
giving Spielberg that
hand you
Godzilla
this.
toy.
Yeah. So anyway, that's I think where the conversation ends for now. We'll have to get back together, but that was a long history there since 2020. I mean, in 4 years is not a huge grand scope, but like it's the past 4 years of conversation and
We've
little
had
reports
more
here and
news
there.
in the past 4 weeks than the past 4 years.
Yeah, and whether this movie ends up being a prequel or in between-quel or a sequel, whatever the case may be, I think
Or a reboot.
or a reboot, complete new. Yeah, I think all options are kind of on the table. Not the reboot, but like I think all options are really on the table right now. So it could be anything, and the messaging has been so
I
confusing.
genuinely think a reboot could even be on the table.
The only way I want them to do that is if it is like an Apple TV or an HBO miniseries.
R-rated, yeah.
Oh yeah, it would
And
have
they're
to
not
be
going to do that because
R-rated.
they can't sell toys.
Yeah, no, I don't know if they can like separate that in their minds of like we have two things. We've got this faithful recreation on streaming, and we've got our film franchise. Like, I don't know if they can hopefully separate that, but that would be very cool to see. And I know a lot of Jurassic fans would really like that. For so many years, I was kind of against that idea, but I think after the past 8 years and so, I've been like, okay, I would be okay with it as long as it's not a film that's like taking the place of the continued story. I just want it to be like its own thing on a streaming service. I think it would be pretty cool to have a faithful recreation of the book. But I've heard reports of everything, and we've seen it in all these reports, whether it was a prequel or using the word Jurassic World. So I don't know. I don't know what this thing is. I have no idea. There's been several movie directors
soon.
Hopefully soon. Several directors have been lined up. We've got one writer. We've got Steve Brasati. We'll know
I'm
soon.
just waiting for Brad Jost to be cast as the multimedia consultant.
Well, I was trying to harness my like Steven Spielberg vibes. I got to get my hair out a little bit longer here, like so I can like look like Steven a little bit more. But I was trying to harness my Steven Spielberg vibes. So yeah.
I don't have anything to say.
You could have told me I'm beautiful and moved on, but you didn't. So,
and this is why I didn't have a Valentine.
I would have been your Valentine, Tom.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. Can't wait to see this get cut so it's not on the internet for people to see.
Oh, you think that's getting cut?